Hello, everybody. Welcome to Wholehearted Loving. I'm Stephanie.
Hi, I'm Georgiana.
Today we have the kind of rare pleasure of being together, and we're also in a car in the forest by the ocean.
Somebody
There
just
be people walking by, but here we are. Today we're going to be talking about how G starts her one-on-one sessions. What do you want to say about that?
Yeah, we thought we'd give you a little inside behind the scenes glimpse of what happens in one-on-one sessions, and that maybe gives you some ideas on things you can ask yourself and reflect on in your own life every day.
Mm-hmm. And before we do that, we'll begin with a body-based self-connection practice to connect with ourselves before we connect with each other and this podcast.
As always, I'm going to follow intuition, so I already feel my hands wanting to hold each other and squeeze. We've just been packing up because we are checking out of our little special magical place this morning. And so it was a bit of a hurried energy, working energy. And so it feels good to take a moment to just feel my hands, give them a squeeze. And that then reminds me to notice my breath. And then that reminds me to feel my butt on the seat. And this is a seat that I'm not normally in. I'm in the back seat of Stephanie's car. I'm not often ever here. So it's always nice when we're in a new spot, especially when we're in new places, to practice these very familiar body practices. So feel my butt on the seat. And let's look. We have the luxury right now of being outside, or like we can look outside. So let's use this one as taking in our environment, the outside environment. If you can, maybe bring yourself to a doorway or a window or step outside. And we'll practice looking for something close by. So it can be anything. I think I see a pine cone outside on the grass. So I'm going to look at this thing and practice either feeling my butt on the seat or feeling my hands squeezing each other. I'm just going to be with this thing for a moment, meaning I'm just going to watch it and be there for a full inhale and a full exhale. And then this is what I'm really like, is look far away to see the farthest away thing you can see. Ocean. And some trees on some island over there. And again, with this thing, just look there, look in that direction. The invitation to be there for a full inhale and exhale. Just be with this thing. And then because I can hear birds chirping, let's go with the sound. Let's go with finding a sound you can hear. And maybe tracking the different sounds that you can hear. I just heard people walking on gravel. I think I heard some laughter and then a golf cart zooming. So learning to track the sensory experience of sound.
One of the nice things about being able to see the ocean when we're practicing noticing our breath is that the ocean is kind of breathing too. Or like if the wind is blowing things, it sort of reinforces slowing down and breath being with.
Now that you said wind, it makes me think of practice noticing the breeze. So if there is no breeze, active breeze that you can feel, maybe you notice the temperature of the air somewhere, whether it's on your hands or your face. And sometimes I can't really notice that. So what I'll pay attention to is, can I notice my breath going in and out of my mouth or my nostrils? And that sensation that it comes with.
That can be a real relief for me, especially if I'm in a cloying air space. Like I really like the sensation of air and movement. and freshness. So if things are stagnant or
stale feeling,
like cloying, humid, stuffy air, that's one way I can really, in that moment, feel a lot better. Either moving into a place with fresh air or feeling the sensation of fresh air coming out of my nose across my top lip as I breathe.
This is something I think good to learn and discover about yourself is what is the impact on you when you feel fresh air in your face? How does it make you feel? Does it bring a smile to your face? What does it do to your breath and your body? I'm very impacted by fresh air, and I don't think I realized that. I mean, I knew fresh air felt good, but it wasn't until the last couple of years that I realized when it hits my face, there's a moment of everything is right in the world. And so how that helps me is when I experience that, I try to pause there for a little longer and enjoy it. Growing that muscle to be familiar with pleasure and comfort and joy. But also when I'm having a hard time, I'll tell myself, just go stick your head out the window.
Nice.
Go stick your head out the window, open the balcony door, stick your head outside. Even if you don't walk outside, stick your head out the door. You will feel different. And every time I do. And it sort of is this reset moment for me. So
tiny and powerful. Yeah.
I think dogs got it right when they stick their heads out the window.
They do. It's true.
So that was a body practice. You've done lots of body practices with us before, and that is also how I will 99.9% of the time start a session with a client. Is I always ask them if it's okay if we start with a body practice first. And the reason for that is to build that habit of I take time for me and then my space before I offer you my energy and time, before I take in your energy. And it's really been a life changer for me to get into that practice of not just immediately plopping down and giving of myself or taking on other people's energy or problems or challenges right away. So I always start like that. And sometimes I have clients who they're so full of what they want to share that they might just start talking. And I'll sort of just sense when is a good time to, obviously make space for that, but also help us transition to adding a little bit of body connection into that. And when I transition us to that place, they're always like, oh, yes, this feels so much better. I was just like a racehorse today, wasn't I? They'll say. I feel the difference of when I take a moment first and then share from a more rooted place. And so that's one component of what always exists in a one-on-one session, pretty much at the beginning. And then the next piece is I start with what is a win? What has been a win for you lately? And often when I first start with clients who are new, they like roll their eyes or grumble or they're silent or they're like, I don't know what's a win. And what I noticed, the pattern is most people are really hard on themselves. And they think that a win has got to be something huge. And they also hold the belief that if things have been hard and challenging, then there must be no wins. So it's been really awesome watching those beliefs transform over time and their excitement to come in and share the wins. And sometimes they'll say, oh, I knew you were going to ask this question. I was trying to think about it. And that's great that people are starting to think about it, to start thinking about, let me start catching my wins, because we have a pattern of catching all the things that don't go well. Right. So I think that's great. And at the same time, I want to encourage it to be just a practice that at the drop of a hat at any moment, you could find a win from your day. Like, I don't want us to think that I have to prepare. Right. So it's been really neat to watch people shift from, oh my God, there are no wins, to, oh, I got to think really hard for a win, to, oh my gosh, I have so many wins to tell you about.
And to celebrate it.
And they're so happy. They come so naturally. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll point out that this is a win that in the past they probably never would have seen, or they never would have considered big enough to be a win, or that it was a win because they've learned to see the wins within the process. It might not be the end goal win, but they're starting to see that this is a huge component of being able to reach that end goal win. And I want to celebrate that.
And to have someone to celebrate it with, like, I think as I hear you talk about these things, it makes sense to me that often the only place people will feel safe and comfortable to share a variety of things is with their counselor, their therapist, some professional. And I think there's a huge element of connection that happens in friend groups and families that's made around bitching about things and worrying about things. And we can be afraid to bring our celebrations and our tiny wins because maybe they're going to seem too small. Maybe someone's not going to celebrate with us. Maybe someone's going to roll their eyes. Maybe someone's going to bring up some objections or some problems that might arise in the future. And we just are cultured into not celebrating in those ways. And I love, one of my favorite things about women's group and other groups that we've facilitated is when people learn this habit of celebrating wins and being able to celebrate even when other people might be in a place of not celebration so much. And that we can still enjoy that for each other.
And learning, like also like sometimes when you put yourself in an environment to hear other people's wins, you notice how some of them hit you. And some of them you feel automatically excited with the person, and others it's like, oh, I have not been dealing with that part of my life, or oh, I feel a little envious or jealous. And it's good to learn that feeling and to learn how you want to use that feeling to inspire you to make changes that lead you more towards that thing that you also want. What else do I want to say? Oh, sometimes I'm working with people who are going through like really like dark, heavy times. And I try to like play with, you know, I don't want to be insensitive to that heaviness and that darkness. I want to make some space for that. And I want to see if there's an openness to see what is also decent or okay or good during this time. And I'll usually ask people, are you open? Even though it's been really hard 2 weeks or whatever it's been, would you be open to also looking for something in this time that has been decent or okay or good? And I've never encountered someone who said, I'm absolutely not open. And what's been really fun to see is that people can find something. They can find something. And sometimes I'll have to remind them that something that's a win is you got out of bed today. And they'll be like, oh yeah, like it's been so rough. Getting out of bed today is a win. And what excites me about someone's willingness to play with that is they're starting to grow the muscle of 1 foot in pain and 1 foot in joy. 1 foot in pain and 1 foot in something like less painful. And I find that, you know, going through a really hard time in my own life, that made a huge difference. And it wasn't that I was negating my pain. It was that I was widening the lens to also include some other things. And they didn't have to be brilliant things, but just something sort of half decent.
Half decent. I remember you phoned me once. You were having a hard time. A really hard time. A really bad thing had happened. And you were being with that thing and you were feeling your feet. And you were expressing your feelings about the bad thing. And then you said, and also, I can see that tree there. And its leaves are in bloom. And that feels nice to see. So good.
Yeah. So growing the muscle to look for what's good, right? What's a win. And so in the beginning, when I work with people, we'll usually start with what's a win. And we'll work on defining what does a win mean, right? And then as we progress, the question changes a little bit. Let me see. Actually, let's go back to the what is a win. I'll also include these questions that people seem to not generally ask themselves. And then they find it so rich when they start asking themselves these questions. What are choices that you have made that have allowed for this to become a win? Right? Because I learned this decades ago when I started working with families. And one of the things was, when you work with families and parents are frustrated, it's very easy to point out what's not working well. And they forget to look at, well, when does it go well? And what are you doing? What's happening in those instances that contribute to things going well? Sometimes it's the environment and the situation. Sometimes it's things that you're actually doing, right? So I like to ask people, what choices have you made? And it's very specific that I use those words. It's recognizing we have choice and that you made certain choices that allowed for this good thing to happen now. And people are like, oh, I don't know. And then eventually I'm like, okay, well, let's just stay with that. And they'll realize, oh, I did this. And then I did this. And we'll talk about, how awesome that is and how let's just mentally jot that down, because you can always go back to that when another hard thing happens in life, because it will eventually. And you can remember, hey, I chose that time to take one small step, right? I chose that time to tell my friend I needed help. Those are things you can generalize into other areas of your life. I find the people who are most successful in creating lives that are fulfilling are ones who can take helpful things in one scenario and then apply them and do them in other scenarios. And some of us have an easier time doing that, and others have a harder time doing that unless we really intentionally practice. And it's fun when you practice and people grow that muscle. They're like, oh, I realized that this thing I do when it comes to making food for myself, I could also do in business. Great.
It's really empowering.
Yeah. And then another question I ask is, what mindset did you choose to adopt that allowed for this thing to now be a win? Because people often don't realize that I changed the way I think about something. Mm-hmm. So someone could say, oh, I changed this mindset that little changes make a difference. Mm. Or I changed and adopted a mindset that my needs are important. Right? And so all of a sudden they have a mindset and a few actions that become really valuable that they can take into other situations.
Mm. I think that's a really important one to recognize, that we can have such an influence for ourselves, because often a circumstance will change that will change our mindset, or, something will occur to us seemingly out of nowhere that will change how we're thinking or feeling about something. And there is a large element of us being able to create that for ourselves through choice and awareness and pausing, feeling your bum, feeling your hands, feeling your breath.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And then as we transition and people grow that muscle a little bit stronger, I'll change the question a little bit, but it has the same theme. But the question is, what patterns are you beginning to notice more often in your behavior and how you do things, how you think about things? Or what patterns are you able to shift a little bit more easily or a little bit more quickly? And I categorize that as under the win column. Mm-hmm. And in the beginning, people will be like, I don't know what's changed, right? And they think that they have to have actually changed something for there to be a win. And over time, they realize just noticing, right? So often once they've had some practice doing this, the beginning of our time together will be like, you know what I noticed lately? I tend to do this. Or, you know what I noticed lately? And what I noticed becomes almost like common language that they use in how they talk about themselves and their experience. And it comes with a tone of wonder and how cool and compassion. And it's really sweet to see people looking at themselves through that lens. And so what have you noticed lately? And you, I think, are a great teacher in this of you can notice something about your patterns and know that it needs to change in order for your life to feel better, and also not feel ready yet to change that thing. And we can see that as a win. Right? Especially if you pair that with something else that I am ready to change now is. Right? So a really important question to ask yourself. Patterns.
Yeah.
Do you have patterns what would you say if we were to practice this right now? What's been a win for you lately?
I think widening my lens has been a win. There's a lot of like mundane life challenges happening right now. And in the past, I would have been pretty swept away with that, I think, and wanting to vent, like, the natural, something bad's happening, you want to get it out with words. And what has become natural for me in pattern shifting over the last few years is the body-based self-connection, the grounding, and using that to widen my like sensory lens of experience, which naturally unfolds into my mindset and my thought patterns. So it's a lot easier now for me to interrupt negative thought patterns, and not in a way where in the past it would have been like, oh, you shouldn't think this way, and it just doesn't help if you're thinking this and that, and instead interrupting it and noticing, just noticing.
So what do you widen your lens now to include that you wouldn't have included? Because you're talking about widening your sensory lens. What do you have some examples of that?
Yeah, so physical sensation. It'll be a lot of foot, feeling my feet, feeling my bum, feeling my breath. And it'll also be the sense, like compassion has a physical sensory experience for me as well. So there's a softening of thoughts and an expansiveness. So instead of just the sort of roiling worry or irritation thoughts, I'm able to also welcome in the compassionate thoughts, the broader perspective, this is not the whole story. There's also all of this. There's also all of the future, the things that are bothering me now. There will come a time when I won't even remember that they happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's that more forced perspective, like you were talking about earlier. I shouldn't think about this. I should see it this way, or logically understand this. And it has a certain energy, that kind of more forced perspective taking. And like what you're describing, I can imagine someone who's not at that place yet in terms of their skill set thinking that feels so far away. How do you go from like going in circles in your mind, driving yourself nuts, to being able to sort of trust and let flow happen and, widen your sensory lens to the point where it sort of slows down that panicked mind? And it sounds like it's maybe far out of reach. And really, it started with, can you feel your butt on the ground?
Yeah.
When you sit. We used to sit on the floor a lot in women's group.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of something I find myself telling people now as well when they're wondering how to get from here to there is a reminder that you're doing it right now. And you're in the middle of this journey of discovering new ways of being. I've always been a person who has wanted to get to the end goal immediately. And at the same time, I believe that everything is a lifelong journey. So like, how do you kind of justify the two together? And it really helps me to remember that doing it right now.
Yeah, it's really quite simple.
Yeah.
Right? Can you feel your hand on your lap right now? Can you see the wheelbarrow being pushed across the lawn? I can. So, let's see. Wins for me, pattern shifts for me. I think a big win lately is to really be okay with the unknown. Like, I don't know how our day is going to go. I don't know how next month is going to go. I don't know what's happening in my life in 6 months or a year. And I'm okay with that. I think that used to freak me out a lot. And I would want to know, And I would think that knowing would give me a sense of security, but I think it would just appease that for a moment until the next thing I decided I needed to know, until I felt better. So just being okay with the unknown. And pattern, I've noticed. So this week we were here, we spent, a week here. It's our last day. And initially there's always these grand plans. And one of my grand plans was going to the gym here every day and maybe walking and doing some body practices. I've been really wanting to get into fascial flossing. It really has been helping my body. And so I'll have an idea of how I want to spend my time when I'm here. And then I get here and I'm like, I don't want to do any of that. I think I want to nap and sleep and sit by the ocean and smell the fresh air. And so I think a pattern of mine that's shifted is letting that be okay. Like letting it be okay to have an idea and a plan and something I'm excited about. And then also letting the plan create itself in the moment and not being like, oh, but I didn't do X, Y, Z. It's more like, it's great to have that idea. And this feels more like the right thing right now. And I still felt that desire to build in my body practices. So occasionally I added them in and it felt so good to do them. And my old self would have been like, see, it felt so good. You should have been doing it for the last 5 days already. And my new self is like, that's amazing. It felt so good. And, you know, maybe I'll want to do it again tomorrow. And then the next day came and I did it and I felt fantastic. And I thought, this is really a nice thing. I want to keep up. The next day came. I didn't do it because life happened and different choices appeared. And I let myself feel the body impact of not doing it without the shame and the mental punishment of not doing it. And so the day after, I was like, you know what? I felt such a big contrast in my body on the days that I did it and the day that I didn't. And I slept so much better on the days that I did it than on the day that I didn't. I want that good feeling again. So I'm going to prioritize this. I'm going to do it again today. And that's such a pattern shift for me of like knowing that something would be good for me and knowing I have a desire to build it into my life. And yet not being a drill sergeant, like a nasty, mean drill sergeant towards myself in the building of the habit.
Totally. Yeah. And trusting that the good thing will come. You want good things for yourself and your body. They will arise naturally as a result of that. I remember when we first started coming here, I wonder who will identify with this that's listening. There's so much to do here. There's ocean, there's pool, there's gym, there's meditation. I mean, there's meditation everywhere.
Forest.
There's reading, games, forest, mountain bikes, kayaks, paddleboards. Puzzles, yeah.
We're good at puzzles.
A lot of food, just an incessant amount of food. And I remember at first being like, well, we have to do all the things. I'm like, pickleball. I'm sure there's even more than that. So much. And we had all these plans. And for me in the past, when there was a plan, it was like, well, then we're doing the plan. Like there's no deviating from the plan. There might be some flexibility, but of course we're going to do all these things. And when it ended up being that, like, I think at that point, maybe I wasn't a napper and you were a napper or something, or this is the story I'm telling myself right now anyway. And I'd be like, almost like twiddling my thumbs with anxiety of like, but the plan, when are we doing the plan? Like, we're just napping. And what I discovered over the years that we've been coming here is that it all comes. And like, we do actually need to do a good amount of napping to catch up and do the grand twice a year regulation that happens in the forest here. And trusting that we're also going to do all of those good things and the energy for that will come.
I think as we both trust our bodies and ourselves more, we're able to know what needs to be prioritized, what can be put aside for this time. We're able to share with each other. Like we wake up and like, it's not like a official meeting or anything, but like, I think there's certain days, especially on like maybe arrival day or leaving day or something, or even just yesterday, it was sort of a rainy day, I remember. But like, we'll tell each other, ask each other, like, what's important for you today? And like, it's nice to have time to reflect on that. It's nice to share that with someone who you know is going to support you in helping your plan for the day come together. And I think what I like about that is also I don't know if you notice, but like when I'm telling you what I want to accomplish for the day, it's like two things. So today I would like to nap and I would like to go for a walk. And there's no like, I need to go for an hour and a half walk and it needs to be at this pace. And it's just, I don't care, any kind of walk. And that will feel like my day was a good day.
Yeah.
Right? A nap, whenever. And then a nap comes.
Yeah.
So that is definitely not how I would have been in the past. At all.
No.
And I don't think I would have known to share what was important to me for the day. Right?
And I wouldn't have known how to receive it. I would have been like, okay, well, I guess we're napping and walking. And like, I mean,
I don't want to nap and walk.
Right? Or I only want to nap and I don't want to walk, or, you know, whatever it is. Or the other day, let's see, I had a really bad headache and you wanted to do some facial flossing.
Facial
Facial.
Could be facial too.
And I also wanted to do that. So we did that. And partway through, it was just making my headache so much worse. So I stopped and I started doing some energetic headache stuff. And like, it seems so simple. Like, if something's causing you pain, don't do it. But somehow that's not simple for humans today. And we'll just keep pushing through. And I'm sure me of the past would have been like, I need to prove something to you, or like, I need to finish the thing I started, or whatever it is. And just giving ourselves some freedom to feel and be, I think, is so powerful.
And to change your mind.
Change your mind.
And like, give yourself what your body needs in the moment. I remember that moment. I remember watching you, because I think I had done the fascial flossing a few times, and maybe it was your first time, second time, I don't remember. But like, I saw you sort of shift what you're doing to something else. And I just thought, oh, she needs something else now. And she's taking care of it. How nice. And I didn't feel the need to like come over to you and pause my whole thing. Are you okay? What do you need? And I just trusted that you were doing what you needed to do. And if you needed more in that moment from me, you would let me know. And that's such a pattern shift from my old self, which would have been like, oh, it probably would have gone to this place. Oh my goodness, I knew she had a headache. You know, she had a headache. Like, why did I suggest to do this? It would probably make it worse. And now she feels worse. And now that's on me. And do I need to stop this and go tend to her and tell her 5,000 ways I think she could fix her headache? And then maybe I'd also feel a little like resentful. Like, now I have to stop doing the thing I wanted to do. Right. And now I'm only halfway done. And I also hate being halfway done something. Yeah. So, and the new pattern is, it's all good. She's over there doing her thing, what she needs right now. Yeah.
All of that happens in an instant. You know, we carry this kind of stuff around with us in our interactions just all the time. And to be able to slow down enough to notice that that's happening, and to pause and to choose, is so good.
Yes. So, noticing patterns. Right. And I always, I like to remind us that if you want to change anything in your life, you have to first notice.
Yeah.
Notice what's happening. Notice the pattern. And the only time you're going to want to notice what's happening is if you're also compassionate and kind to yourself. Because who wants to notice things and then feel really crappy? Right? So I think it's the growing the muscle of noticing and being like, oh, interesting. Neat that I do that. Yeah. I wonder what's caused me to string together that pattern over time, right? And then from there, I also don't like to assume that we want to change all of our patterns, because maybe you don't want to change it. And so I like asking myself, like, what is the impact on me with this pattern, this existing pattern? What's the impact on me in my life and the things that matter to me? What is the impact on other people in my life who I care about? And then what is the impact of this pattern on our relationship? And then I got some good info on it. Yeah. And then I get to decide what I want to do. And that's it. Simple.
That's it. Yeah. Nice. Do you have anything else you want to say before we do a closing practice?
I think just a reminder, the invitation for yourself to notice what is a win for you today, this week, this month. Right? What is a pattern you're noticing more often, a pattern you're shifting more often or more easily? And it can be simple. It can be small. I think we'd encourage it to look for small wins, look for small pattern shifts.
Even tinier. If you can break down one win into 5 tiny wins, then right there you've got 500% more wins in like 1 second. So why not? Why not? I think we should do that video you sent me with the fingers and the ears.
Yeah.
And the, yeah.
Okay.
These are things, and what is it for? Is it nervous system regulation?
Yeah, nervous system regulation.
Yeah.
And I had found a video and I was drawn to it. I was drawn to it because they're things that I think are rooted in Chinese medicine because my parents taught me these things as kids, but I sort of just brushed it off as whatever.
Yeah. Parents.
Yeah. And I do them now and they help my body feel better.
And this is such a trip. So G sent me this video and I went through the 4 steps that we're going to walk you through. And I realized, and I often realize as I learn about these practices, that they're things that I was already naturally doing. And I think it's so neat to discover what you're doing naturally with and to your body, unconsciously to self-soothe, because often they will be linked with things that have science behind them that we just didn't know about. Yeah, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to walk us through?
Yeah, do you remember it was 3 fingers?
Yeah, so 3 fingers and where the 4th finger is. So just for those who are listening, we're putting, so if you hold up your hand and you put your fingers, how do we describe this?
So hold up your left hand and then take your right hand and place your, your ring finger, middle finger, pointer finger.
Yeah.
Running across your wrist.
Perpendicular.
Right at the bottom of your palm. Right?
Yeah.
And then where the 4th finger, the thumb might go.
Yeah.
That's where we now see that as a point, like a pressure point almost.
Yeah, right? So on the inside of, I hope you're just watching because this is hard to describe. On the inside of your arm and on the outside of your wrist, you're going to dig your thumb into that pressure point right there. So like 4 fingers below the heel of your palm.
Mm-hmm. And you can just sort of apply a little bit of pressure. I like to move my thumb around a little. And you can do this. Some people say 30 seconds or a minute. I just like to do it until it doesn't feel good to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And while I do it, I like to pair in the can I feel my butt on the seat? And can I notice my breath? And sometimes I'll do it with my eyes open. Sometimes I'll do it with my eyes closed. Yeah.
I find I do it till my pinky starts getting tingly.
Okay. Yeah. Also, I believe I like to watch a whole bunch of YouTube videos for neat things you can do with your body. I think this has also been shared as a pressure point to use when your tummy isn't feeling good.
Ooh.
And I think it's because it's all interconnected, you know?
Mm-hmm. Sure is.
I use this one sometimes too for that.
So that was the first one. And then the second one is just pushing in the space between your eyebrows on your forehead. And this is a very natural one for me if I have a certain type of headache.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what's neat about this is how I got started doing this one was my massage therapist. Mm-hmm. He would always, like when he was massaging my face, he would not just push on it, but we're both doing it, I think, instinctively. Mm-hmm. Like sort of just making small circles. So adding pressure and slow, small circles to the spot. And he would always do this as part of the massage. And then he'd also do these things where he, I think, ran his fingers and dragged them across my forehead. But anyways, what I noticed was, it felt so good. Mm-hmm. It felt so good. And so I'd catch myself doing that. And what I want to share is, was it? I was talking to a client recently, and I think they were doing like one of these like self-hug things that initially they were not used to doing. But then they said, you know what happened? I was doing my self-hug, and immediately it made me take a huge deep breath. And she said, I think it's working. Yes. Right? And what she meant by that is these things that were just like moving her body before have now become things that her body recognizes as, oh, this is where I get to feel good and I get to let go. And so her body is showing her the second she offers that kind of touch, everything settles. And the reason why I'm sharing that is this has become one of those spots that just the second, almost immediately when I touch it, everything melts. And you might not feel that initially when you first do this. It might feel a bit weird, but I just wanted to put it out there that as you keep practicing and your body becomes more comfortable and familiar with it, you might notice that shift, and that all of a sudden your body knows, oh, when they touch me on that spot like this, it means everything can just settle.
Yeah, creating cues for ourselves. Yeah. Right. So the next one, there's two more. The next one is grabbing the top of your ears. So you're digging your
Hey, we look funny.
You're digging your thumb into the little indentation inside the top of your ear. I do not know the names of any of these ear parts.
Me neither. And then your index finger, or my index finger, is on the outside, right?
Show me.
Yeah, like I put it like this. Like this.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so grabbing your top ear flaps.
And I like to wiggle them. I don't know what you do with them. Wiggle and pull a little.
Yeah, it's a wiggle pull.
A wiggle pull. Yeah. And my dad always taught me to do this. And it's funny because I didn't notice it as a kid, but like I think every time I walked past my dad, he would like pull on my ears. Yeah. And it was because he knew it was good for me.
Yeah. That's so funny. We've got different cultural programming about ears being pulled away by like authoritative teachers, being yanked by the ears. And there's so many pressure points in your ears. The ears are like magic acupressure centers.
Ears and feet.
Ears and feet. So then when I do this very naturally, often pulling on my ears, my next step and the last step from this video, maybe I can remember the name of the doctor and share it, is tugging on your earlobes. Just pulling your earlobes out and down.
Out and down.
Out and down.
And there's different ear ones. Maybe I'll share some next time. But what's nice about this is also not just to notice the sensation of pulling like out and down or down and out, but notice the sound that it makes. It's like, it can be like that seashell ocean sound. And that can be a really regulating sound.
And it's really helpful for me. So this has many layers for me. First is I used to pull on my earlobes when I was little because I have really, really tiny earlobes and I wanted them to be bigger. And the next is that I have really tiny ear canals. And so I need to regularly like pop my ears, and pulling on them and opening the canals feels really good and accomplishes something good, like technically for my eustachian tubes. And it also helps with my TMJ, temporomandibular joint disorder. So any kind of loosening and opening around jaw and ears is having quite a physiological effect for me.
I've been just enjoying, so you can also pause and then notice the sensation that still goes through your head. And what I noticed is, as I pay attention to that sensation, like I really don't want to think. I
Mm.
don't know if you've experienced that feeling yet, but over time, I think as you do more of these body practices that your body enjoys and learns to enjoy, you're going to feel this, oh, like, let me just think about my day, or let me go ruminate about that hard thing again. And then internally, I feel like, no, I don't want to go to that place. I don't want to go to the heavy swirling. I want to like enjoy more this sensation I've just created.
Mm-hmm.
And like that shocked me in my life when that started to happen. Like, what do you mean you don't want to ruminate? But that's your safety and comfort. So this is really neat. Also, an ear thing I tend to do is like when we started at the top here earlier, I then work my way down and I like let my thumbs sort of like just massage the inside, and I'll just keep pulling on the ear.
Mm.
Yeah.
So good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice
Great.
feelings.
Very nice feelings. Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to say?
No, enjoy your ear pulls.
Yeah, enjoy your pulls. Okay, well, I feel very relaxed. Thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week. I think we'll still be in the car, and we'll see you from the car again next week. As always, thank you for joining us, and if anything we've said here today has been helpful for you, please share with somebody that you care about, and also like, follow, and subscribe. And we'll see you soon.
Bye.